sunny January day, and today we are on the Cannondale Jekyll 1. This thing's like a 170 millimeter big enduro rig. It's got all the latest and greatest stuff. High pivot design with a idler pulley, and this bike sports like the horse link suspension layout. This bike is definitely one of those like split climbers where it features just this incredible climbing geometry, just puts your hips and therefore your weight really far forward. So when you're just winching up these really steep switchbacks like that one, you can keep that front wheel planted and steering. And I really love the advent of these super steep C-tube angles. And then on the other side of the kind of climbing coin, so to speak, this bike's got that idler pulley, which in my experience, those always eat up just a few watts, and it doesn't take a whole lot of losing your watts before you can kind of feel it. And I will say this bike is definitely like one of the most efficient idler pulley bikes I've been on. I think part of that's just from not having double down casing tires. Going on a little bit more about that idler pulley, there's like a sealed cartridge bearing in there, and after having the bike for a few weeks, I did find that those bearings, like I had to service them. They're getting a little rusty. This is also one of those bikes that just like really swallows stuff up as you're climbing. It's just like that position that you're in just allows you to be on this real soft bike that can soak everything up while still not like working against you all that much. This has definitely been one of those bikes where I just threw my leg over it and was immediately very comfortable with the layout. You've got that 475 reach, which is just kind of a number that seems like every other bike is floating around, but puts it right at the perfect kind of cockpit size for me. And 64 head tube angle, which once again, that's like kind of right in the middle of what the new bikes are pushing these days, and certainly like slack enough that you feel very comfortable at high speeds, but yet not too slack where it kind of just becomes a joke going around uphill switchbacks. I guess one other side effect of that idler is uphill you get that kind of whirring gear noise, but actually downhill seems to make the bike way quieter. A little frosty up here, but time for the good part. And really the part of the ride where this bike is gonna especially excel at. This thing really was just so intuitive and comfortable for me, like right out of the box. As I said, that like 475 reach for me is really just kind of a Goldilocks number. 64 head angle keeps things nice and relaxed, and then yeah, just quite a bit of suspension to keep things you know, no reason to shy off from plowing into some roots. Woo! Just let that big old 38 do its thing. It's quite a soft ride. And I think the thing that's just like especially special about this bike is just, it just really does give you that like pivot around your hips feeling, but it pairs that with like a really long, confident wheelbase. And it's just kind of interesting how these high pivot bikes seem to do that. Like you feel like you can kind of corner real aggressively but also you can just plow into stuff with confidence of like 170 millimeters of travel and pretty dang long wheelbase, honestly. This thing is just actually devouring the chunk today. It's quite a plush ride, and I don't know, giving me quite a bit of grip on a day without much. It's pretty chilly up here. Really love that we've got this assegai tire up front just clinging to the earth. I feel like these trail conditions are just absolutely perfect for an assegai right now. And yeah, I really love the addition of that 230 front rotor. Just makes such a big difference. I'm like 210, 215 pounds. And sometimes those 200 millimeter rotors just honestly heat up and aren't quite enough, especially when you factor in just how dang capable these new bikes are getting. It's like you got some high speeds and you need to shut things down. It's honestly probably the most powerful codes I've ever felt to me. Man, it's just such a plush bike today. Feels amazing. Just really quite easy on the wrist, and I just feel like I'm able to maintain my weight distribution and just kind of hang out at that sweet spot of the bike. And my God, it's just so stable at speed. But it's also given me this feeling of kind of like little bike agility, which is strange. You know, maybe that's that center of gravity. It's cold enough where my fingers are starting to go numb, but these tires are finding plenty of grip despite the kind of half soggy, the very cold conditions. I'd say that rear shock leverage ratio is kind of perfect what you'd want for a bike like this. You've got just like this middle zone that the bike seems to really hover in. Wow, just totally ate that up. And also this like very exponential feeling end of the stroke, where it's just like I'm not feeling like the bike is hitting that very end. It just hangs out in this beautiful deep middle zone like a downhill bike would. I'm actually pretty blown away like just how much crud this bike eats up. It's just really soaking everything up so nicely. And it gives you just like this hybrid of like a downhill bike for its ability to swallow stuff, and kind of more of an agile trail bike for its ability to just change direction and not feel too big, too cumbersome. Between that 38 and just the design of the rear, you know, of the frame, the main frame of this bike, this thing just feels very capable and stiff without being hard on the wrist, but like just the way that the chassis is kind of flexing off of roots and rocks. You can tell this thing is just like really could take a beating. And it's just got this really drivable quality to it. Man, I love the 230 rotors on these brakes. Yeah, as far as the Fox suspension on this bike, like the damping itself, I am running them like wide open on every setting. And yeah, I just feel like I'm not really able to get the rebound quite as fast as I want. I know that the standard grips will be a little faster, but still amazing feeling suspension in that 38. Just really gives so much confidence the way it handles. It just doesn't get deflected offline. Man, this thing is just such a joy to ride. It just feels like kind of the perfect bike for this trail right now. Like I was able to pedal it up the mountain without too much work, and then right now it feels like it's got quite a bit in common with a full-out downhill bike in all the best ways. Woo. With the added bonus of just being really easy on the wrist. You can really take a beating without rattling your wrists off the bars. All right, so who's this bike for? I'd say this bike is just the ultimate like big bike for people riding aggressive terrain, shuttling. They're riding the bike park and they just need something that lets them devour black and double black terrain, gives them more confidence, allows them to kind of race through things. And people who don't put like a huge premium on riding their bike up the mountain, but you could certainly just rely on this bike every day. Just a few extra watts. So if you enjoyed this review, consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. And for the full write-up, head on over to freehubmag.com.